Whenever you start a new city, you have one of two options. Option A, carefully and methodically plot out the logistical structure, utility services, and recreational areas for thousands of people to live in. Option B, use your godlike powers to create a massive structure of rock and dirt, then funnel all of the human-generated waste only to eventually open the floodgates and force the entire city of people, men, women, and children to drown in a sea of their own demise. Hello again, people, and today we are going to talk about city builders. Why? Well, it's because I've been on a city skylines binge for a couple weeks now, and I honestly have no idea why. Occasionally, I look through my installed games in my Steam library and I test them to see if I should keep them on my computer. I had played CS for about 30 hours at the time I decided to play it again, and as of writing the script, I now have over 160 hours. Which leads me to the same question: why? Why have I become so addicted, so enamored with this game? Why have I suddenly found myself learning about industrial logistics and proper road hierarchy, whatever that means? Why is that building off-center by one row, and why does it bother me so much? Today we are going to find out why city builders are the best drugs since drugs. To start, let's go back, and I mean really far back, before cities were even a thing. Back when humans were just starting to play Minecraft for the first time. If you were an average human back then, your day-to-day schedule would consist of hunting, eating, and anything in between. Every day came with a recurring set of problems that you needed to solve for yourself, or you died. One day, one random dude, most likely a Mesopotamian dude, walked up to this big river and was like, "Hey, what if I just stay here for a while?" And there you have it, one of the first big human settlements. But why did this happen? To simplify it in a way that is almost insulting, this person had many problems in their life, and one great idea to solve all of these problems at once. They needed food, so they planted the food in one place. They needed water, so they planted the food right next to the river, and so on. This is what a city is, a series of problems that find their solutions every single day. What's that? There's too many people and not enough jobs? Well, let's just build some new roads close to the edge of town and zone in some more places for people to work. The people who work at these places needed money to buy food, and now that they have a job, they can buy food, which then give money to businesses, which then pay their employees as well. Many problems all created and then solved by the city. Well, the people inside the city. We've actually been doing this for thousands of years, with varying degrees of success. Not living in cities. I'm talking about problem solving. Humans have been solving problems for a long time. And if there's anything that still baffles me to this day, is that the brains that we possess today are pretty much the same that they were over 50,000 years ago. The software has been receiving incremental updates over the years, but the hardware has stayed exactly the same. The brain that discovered animal-assisted agriculture is the exact same that thinks it's hilarious whenever they see their digital citizens drown in a tsunami of feces. Let's talk about problem solving and why humans are absolutely addicted to it. I said software and hardware like the brain was some kind of computer, but really everything that happens inside the brain is chemical. Chemicals release in your brain and give responses based on the chemical. In this specific situation, we're going to talk about dopamine, everyone's favorite neurotransmitter. The brain supply of dopamine is tied to the reward response system. When our city doesn't have enough electricity, it tells us this with an assortment of bad red, not enough electricity symbols. When we rectify this problem, all of the bad red lightning bolts go away, and we get dopamine as a reward. We do something that is beneficial to us, so we feel good as a result. This simple yet effective system can explain everything from addiction to evolution. The humans of yesterday made it to the point where they could start a family because they had dopamine every time they did something good. We successfully took down the spore, and now we get to eat food. Good job, everybody. Software changed, but hardware is the same. We have incredibly easier lives than our ancestors, but that doesn't mean we don't have our own problems ourselves. What was once a vital feature to our survival has now given us new challenges in the modern world. The brain trains itself to follow behavioral patterns. These behaviors can unwittingly drive the brain to make decisions that could be harmful to the body. Playing video games for hours on end is not the worst addiction one could have, but still an addiction nonetheless, so take a break every once in a while, okay? We would literally be nowhere without this dopamine response, simply because the humans that didn't solve the classic food and water problems is the human that doesn't live long enough to have kids. Today, we are thankful and inspired by the intelligence of past humans. We give them thanks for their amazing solutions to the world's problems. Electricity, for example, is one of mankind's best solutions. I could never claim to know the motivations of people who lived for hundreds or even thousands of years ago, but I honestly believe the reason why they were so successful is because they learned to love problems. For some people, not all, but some, would rather turn a blind eye to the problems they face in their everyday lives. I would plead you to refrain. The stress that most people associate with problems is natural, and it's just as essential to the problem-solving process as dopamine. After all, what good is a reward if strife doesn't distract you first? Something unique to city builders is that while there is challenge, the drive to continue is completely on the player. You, the player, are in charge of everything, from the amount of people that live in your city, to where the utilities go, or whether or not a massive earthquake takes out this hospital.
An earthquake is occurring. Don't panic and wait for help if you are in the affected area.
You are in control, and you decide how these problems are solved. Take traffic, for example. At any given point in time, there are people constantly coming in and out of the city, and as you can see, the traffic is having a hard time making their way out. We can divert exports of products to a nearby train station or airport. We can divert all incoming traffic so that the imports and exports don't have to cross over each other. We can even stop exporting altogether. Just have all the people work in office spaces where we don't have to export anything. And we only have to worry about imports. The freedom of choice. Move over, Telltale Games. I'm going to destroy the entire forest industry in my city, and who cares if the people remember it or not, because they can just work in office buildings. Traffic becomes more and more of an issue as the population of the city increases. Population management is such a pertinent topic of discussion in the modern world, and it's also a problem that you will face in every single game of City Skylines. The initial road infrastructure you create will not be sufficient upon reaching 20,000 plus people. Different people want different things, they have different interests, which you would regret ignoring. So we have to accommodate this problem by finding the solution. Much to the game's benefit, the solution is different every single time. The way you solve your problems is directly connected to the way you make your problems. For example, if you have a lot of concentrated population zones, then you will want to use a metro with a high capacity to move your citizens from place to place. If you want your city to be very industrious, then you should connect your industrial zones to your commercial zones using a cargo train. Where do you place these services? It's all up to you, the power is in your hands. In a way, city builders are like a power fantasy. There are so many forces at play that affect our daily lives and which we have no control over. The electric company controls the power grid, the water distribution company controls where the water pipes are. Our internet providers choose how much they charge us. All of these services are categorized as essential by most people, and yet we have little to no control over them. These games put all of the power into our hands. Now we are in control of what goes where and who gets to live where, and if we so choose, we can destroy it all with a single button click. You are the arbiter of the lives of potentially millions of digital souls. City builders are like massive adult toy boxes which allow us to therapeutically control the lives of many digital people. It's also a direct representation of how we think the world should be, which typically has a direct correlation to where we live. If you grew up in a more rural area, then your cities will probably take on a more rustic aesthetic. Deep urban dwelling players will be more interested in making sprawling metropolises. My hometown has a lot of square-shaped neighborhoods, and subconsciously, that's what I put in my residential areas, despite people saying they're basic and boring. Games like this are avenues for expression, no pun intended, and they also give you context for the world around you. Most people never learn about road hierarchy, but it will change your life when you do. I had no prior interest in civil engineering, but after learning about the distinction between arterial roads and collector roads, and then seeing them incorporated in the city I currently live in, it's like a whole new world for me. I understand the world around me so much more so than I did before because of this game. Before, the roads I drove on were just roads of varying sizes. Now, I understand that each of these roads have a specific purpose. You know, the more I get older, the more I notice that life is full of problems. They were always there before, but I just didn't notice them because I was a child. Things are different now. I have bills, I have responsibilities, and if I fail, then I'm screwed. Sure, our lives are better than they were thousands of years ago, but you would think after all this time, they would have done away with problems altogether at this point. I also realize as I get older that, in a way, people need problems in their lives. As crazy as it sounds, a world without problems is also a world without change. Yes, depending on the size of the issue, problems can make us incredibly stressed, but that stress is what drives you to push yourself, surpass your previous limitations, and grow. If you never had problems in your life, then your life would eventually lose its meaning. Whether we like it or not, the brain's hardware is the same. We are driven by dopamine responses obtained from success. No imperfections means no improvement. No innovation means only stagnation. This is human nature from a grand perspective. Learn to love problems, and eventually your life will be filled with beautiful solutions. Thank you all so much for watching. Goodbye.